So you are very sure that the president does not have any trait of being a clannish president as is being portrayed?
Unless those who are trying to portray him in that mode will bring evidence. You know that for decades they tried to shut him out of governance. And one of the things they did was to slap him and paint him and tar him with a brush of clannishness, of religious bigotry, and so on and so forth. So it's still part of that same agenda. Those people have forgotten that the horse has bolted already, and they are trying to lock the door of the stable after the horse had left. President Buhari is president already. He's president. They need to accept that he is the bona fide president, he is the father of the nation, and they must team up with him.
As it was reported, the president recently apologized to Nigerians and encouraged them to bear with the government in view of the current economic recession in the country. What should we expect on a short-term and long-term basis from this administration? Short-term, like 6 months, long-term, maybe the remaining part of the administration, the term.
Yes, short-term is that relief and succor will be brought to Nigerians as fast as possible. As fast as yesterday, if possible. But you know that there are some variables that are not completely under control. But with the variables that are under control, know that this government will exert that control to bring succor to the people. Because, like the president has said a number of times, he feels their pains. He feels their pains. So, as quick as possible, as fast as a day, as fast as a week, a month, 6 months, anything that can be done to bring succor to the people will be done. But in terms of the long term, oh yes, we can be sure that the focal areas, and what are those areas? Agriculture and solid mineral, particularly in the life of this administration before 2019, we will have a breakthrough. It is said that by 2018, end of 2018, we may not need to import any type of grain again. Grains, Nigeria will have enough grains. And that by 2019, we not only will have established self-sufficiency, we will even be exporting. That's the same roadmap we also have in the petroleum sector. That by 2018, Nigeria will not need to import a drop of petroleum product again, petrol particularly, but that by 2019, we will be exporting. I think if we have this kind of roadmap in any country, the onus is on the people to cooperate with the government that has fashioned that roadmap and tell themselves, this is good for us. Let us all team up and make sure that this is achieved. And I tell you, it will be achieved.
Well, we'll wait for that to be achieved. Somebody who was very also instrumental to the emergence of Mr. President, though he was critical of the former administration, the Emir of Kano, recently accused the president of creating an atmosphere whereby people just are making billionaires on a daily basis through forex sales, discriminate forex sales. Was the president disappointed with this remark?
I wouldn't use the word disappointed, but I'd rather say somebody like the Emir of Kano has access to the president. And if he needs to say anything, he can always tell the president. And now the question is, if you have access, why then shout from the rooftops? It will amount to playing to the gallery. But, of course, the president takes such things in his strides. The things that he needs to accept, he will accept. The ones he needs to process, he will process. And what he can use for the good of the country in the criticism, he will use. But then we should refrain from criticism for the sake of criticism. We don't need to play to the gallery, to be applauded or to be called a radical and all that. If you have access to those in authority, there is then no need saying some things from the rooftops.
Okay, lastly, as we prepare to go, sir, I want to believe, first of all, that there was no entire truth in what he said, that accusation.
Well, we never can rule out anything. But if what he said is happening, then the onus is on those who run that part of the economy to look into it. Because if it's happening, it's unconscionable. In a country like this,
the president may not be aware of it.
Oh, he may not be aware of it. And if anybody does that, and one thing I can vouch for with this administration is if anybody does that and he gets caught, that person will answer for it.
As we roll, like okay, sir, as we end off, I just want to find out from you, the Chief Executive Officer of Facebook visited the president in the presidential villa, and they met behind people. What did they discuss? What hope does that hold for Nigeria?
Well, you know that Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Facebook, has an inspiring story. And the president held that story as something that Nigerian youths must aspire to and seek to approximate. So he commended him, and he also thanked him for coming to Nigeria at a time like this. You know that he was in Lagos, he walked in Yaba openly, he jogged on the Ikoyi-Lekki bridge, showing that Nigeria was not as unsafe as people would want to make it seem. So the president thanked him for coming, and he commended his entrepreneurial spirit and urged Nigerian youths to emulate such. And of course, there were some other areas in which Nigeria stands to benefit from Facebook. The different ministers were there: Minister of Education, Minister of Information, Trade and Investment, Science and Technology, Minister of Communications. Each spoke about what Facebook can do with the different ministries to make an impact on Nigeria.
Will it be possible for us to see the government calling on Mark Zuckerberg to possibly come and give some technical backstopping where needed?
Yeah, it was part of the things the ministers raised. For instance, Google is doing some things like that. Huawei is doing something like that. Another company from South Korea is doing something like that. And Facebook was also challenged to do so. The Minister of Communications also spoke about the intention to build a university of technology. And he asked Facebook to also partner in different ways with Nigeria in doing that.
Thank you very much. You may want to say one or two things to the audience by way of what they should be patient with the government.
Yes, what I like to say is that the Muhammadu Buhari government is in office. It has spent about 1 year, 3 months. It has some 2 years and 9 months, or they're about to go. I'll tell you that this government will do well for Nigeria. The promises that have been made will be fulfilled. And at the end of the tenure of the administration, Nigerians will be glad that they had elected that government. Those who believed and trusted in it will be glad and delighted that they trusted the government. And those who are impatient, I hope they also will be humble enough to say, indeed, we missed it, we were wrong. And they will say, President Buhari, sorry, we judged you untimely. Now we have seen that you meant well and you have done well for our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Femi Adesina. It's been a pleasure having you in the Fresh News studio.
Thank you.
Viewer, that's the size of our package today on Fresh News In-Depth Report. I am Desmond Utom.